Hello everybody. My name is Jenny Jackson. I'm an instructional technology coach for the Bibb County School District, and I'd like to welcome you here today for our SMART training that we're doing today. Today's training is going to consist of two parts, SMART Labs and Smart Learning Suite Online, and then this afternoon you'll have time to work with your coworkers in your breakout groups that you've been assigned to by your schools to create SMART Labs and Learning Suite Online activities. You'll be able to collaborate together with your teammates. Let's talk about our learning targets for today. I'm going to be covering the SMART Labs, which is part one of this training session, and we're going to learn to access our Learning Suite Online accounts, become familiar with the Smart Learning Suite Online interface, create a Smart Learning Activity Lab that you can use with your students, and then I'm going to show you how to edit your labs and that you have created and how to share your labs. So let's get started. Okay. So to get started, you guys will need to log into your ClassLink account, and we're going to be using the My Smart Tech icon, which gives you access to the teacher account of the Smart Learning Suite. And so the easiest way to get to the My Smart Tech is once you have logged into your ClassLink, in the upper right hand corner there's a search box. If you just click in that search box and type in SMART, it will bring up all of the Smart Learning Suite icons that you have in your account. If you do not have this in your account, I'm going to later give you the direct web address for this. Once you click on the My Smart Tech icon in your ClassLink, it brings you to this screen. If you have not ever been into the Smart Learning Suite Online, you will need to sign up for an account. The accounts are provided to us by the Bibb County School District, so you will use your Bibb County School District credentials, which would be your Office 365 credentials, because you're going to sign up with an Office 365 account to create your account. One note for you all: when you create your account, it's going to ask you for your display name or your class name. Just remember, this is the name that the students will see as the name of your class. So you might put something in there like Miss Jackson's class. If you have already signed up for an account, you just simply click sign in. Your credentials are remembered. And it will take you to the home screen. This is the home screen for the Smart Learning Suite Online. And let's go over this just a little bit and look at it. Here where you see my screen says Jenny's class. This is the class name that I was talking about that you are going to create. And then everybody will be assigned a class ID. That class ID will stay the same unless you decide you want to change it at another time. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. Over here you've got the icon, the little head icon where you can log out if you would like. Here is the Edit Class feature. Should you ever need to change your class name or the class ID, you can click Edit Class, and here you have the option to rename the class or reset your class ID. You also can edit the class banner if you don't like the blue background. Below that, you have an Add Activities button that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. This is where you would go to add new activities to your Smart Learning Suite Online. Next to the Add Activities button, you have a Training button. And I'm going to click that for just a minute because the Training button is where the Smart Software Company has put lots of video tutorials out. They're short little tutorials that you can watch to help you use the Smart software. So this is a really good reference for you. And there's also additional resources at the bottom with step-by-step instructions, teacher guides, and other resources that you might find very useful. And so underneath the Add Activities button and the Training button, you have Smart. This is where your Smart lessons and Smart activities that you have created will reside. Of course, if you've created none, you won't see anything here, but each of these icons here represents an activity or a lesson that I have created or that someone has shared with me that we'll talk about later. So at this point, we're going to take a break for a minute. So during this 10-minute work session, your facilitator is going to pause the video, and during that time, you're going to log into ClassLink. You're going to open the MySmartTech icon. If for some reason you do not have the MySmartTech icon in your ClassLink, you can go to this website that is listed here. You're going to sign in to your LSO, or your Smart Learning Suite Online account. If you do not have an account, then you're going to take this time to create one. Remember to create the account using your Bibb County School District credentials from your Microsoft Office 365 account, and then you're going to create the name of your class. Remember, that would be the name that the children are going to see. And then I want you to take a few minutes to explore the homepage of the Smart Learning Suite Online. If you have any questions or issues while you're doing this, you can type into your team chat to let your moderator know. Okay, now that everybody's had a chance to get logged in and explore the homepage for just a minute, let's look at the different activities that you can add into your Smart Learning Suite Online. To add an activity, you click here on the Add Activities tab, and then there are different types of content that you can add into your Smart Lessons. You can import different types of resources, videos, blank pages, and you will learn more about these during the second part of today's training. Let's look at the activity templates here. This is what we were referring to as the Smart Labs. There are several different types of Smart Labs. There's Shout It Out, there's Response, and then there's game-based activities that we're going to talk about in just a minute also. Shout It Out first, we'll start with that, is an activity that you can do with your whole class. It is an excellent way to allow your students to express their personal voice. It's a very good activity for brainstorming, categorizing, predicting, giving conclusions, lots of different ways, and it's very easy to fill out this template. So I'm going to click on the Shout It Out so that you can look at the template. The template consists of two different ways to do a Shout It Out activity, a randomize or in categories. With randomize, you simply ask the question. You could do a poll of your students. You could ask them to give you their interpretation of a reading that you had just done. Lots of different things. And the students just respond to you, and then you can, as the teacher, move their responses around into different groups or talk about the responses that the students have given you. Y'all could group them together. Again, it's very open and allows for any type of answer to just about any type of question. Another way to do it is the categories, and I'm going to click on that. With categories, you give the students categories, and their contributions need to be grouped into that category. Let me give you a quick example. For example, maybe you guys had just finished studying nouns, and we want to categorize, give me some examples of different types of nouns. And so we know that nouns are a person, a place, or a thing. Now, notice if you need more categories, you can add them here. Over here, your students can contribute to any Shout It Out with a text, which means they just simply type in their answer to you or their response, or you could allow them to submit images as part of the response. You also can set the number of times a student can respond to your question. I'm going to leave this at 3 because I have 3 different categories. So I want each student to contribute an example of a person, a place, or a thing. You also have the option to show the student's name or hide the student's name. It just all depends on what type of question you've asked or what the purpose of your Shout It Out activity is. When you are finished with that, you simply click the Finish button for your template, and it creates the activity for you that you can then use with your students in class. Okay, I'm going to go back to the Add Activities button. I'm going to skip the response for just a minute. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. The game-based activities. There are different templates here, and these are all game-based, as it says. They're fun games that you can create that help your students become more engaged in your lessons. Now, there are several different ways to do these in your class. All of the activities can be done on a student device, which allows every student to have their own copy of the activity. And you will learn a lot more about that in the second part of the session as far as engaging the students through the Smart Learning Suite online. I do want to note, though, that some of the devices, if you will notice here on the Monster Quiz, the Team Quiz, and I'm going to jump back for just a minute to the Shout It Out and the Response, they all say that devices are required. What that means is that in order to participate in that activity, every student needs to have a device. Now, that device could be their phone. That device could be a laptop. It could be a desktop. Maybe you go into the computer lab at your school and everybody could participate. But those that say device required, in order to complete that activity, every student needs to have a personal device that they can use to do that activity. The other activities here can be run whole group in your classroom from your panel. Now, again, remember, all of the activities can be done individually on a device, but these other groups that don't say device required can be run whole group from your panel. So let's talk about the different type of activities that are here. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of all of the activities. So the first one here is fill in the blank. So let's talk about the fill in the blank activity. This is very much like a closed reading activity. You type in text, choose the words that you want to be the blanks, and then the students would then fill in the blanks for that activity. Another way you could use this in math, let's say, is you could provide the students with a problem, and then the solution would be the blank, and they could use that to fill in the blank, or you could even type in questions, and the answer would be the blank that students use to then fill in. The Flip It Out activity is just like electronic flashcards. It lends itself very good to studying vocabulary words, or you could have question on one side, answer on the other, math facts on the front side, answer on the other side. It's a very good study guide, study aid for the students. I'm going to skip game show for a minute. Let's talk the label reveal. Label reveal is also a very good study aid for students. With label reveal, you simply import a picture into the template, choose the areas of the picture that you want to label, and you provide the label for that area. An example of using this might be you have had the students look at a map that you have put in there and labeled the rivers and the towns, and then as they click on the label, it reveals the name of that river or that town that you have put in there. One good way to use this might be to have the students check their own work. So let's refer back to that same map. Say you handed the students a handout that they had to complete of a map, and then you could import that same map into your label reveal activity, and the students could use it to check their work that they did on the handout. The match them up and the memory match here are very similar in that you're matching two things. And so they lend themselves to any activity where you would need the students to develop a one-to-one correspondence. So let's talk about the match them up. You would have two categories that the children are going to match the items in from either category. So you might do something like matching the vocabulary word with its definition. Or you might, again, do a math fact with the answer. Or a character with a quote that the character had from that story. So anything that requires a one-to-one correspondence works very well for Match 'em Up. And the same goes for Memory Match. Memory Match is like the old game that you used to play where you laid out the cards on the table and you flip them over to get matching pairs. So anything that you could match with a pair works really good. One way for both of these to be a little more engaging would be to have where the students had to solve something before they could then match it. Rank order is a sequencing activity, so it lends itself very well to any skill where the children need to sequence things or put them in order. So you might put numbers in order from greatest to least, or you might have them order the sequence of events in a story. Another good use for rank order is after the students have sequenced their items, then have them work with a partner or share out with the class the justification and reasoning for why they put the items in the order that they put them in. Supersort is a classification activity, so anything that you can group into two different categories, you can use Supersort for. You set the two categories. You could have students group things into cause and effect, or fact or opinion. Or you could use your categories as two different ranges, and the students would solve a math problem and put it into the correct range category that it fits in. There are lots of different ways that you can use the Supersort activity. Okay, now that we've gone over all of the different types of games, let's look real quick at how a template looks to fill up to do a game. So I'm going to choose the Match 'em template, and let's just say maybe I wanted them to match the chemical symbol with the actual chemical. And so, let's see, you would just simply type in the text of the symbol and then the text of the word. Notice you can add pictures in some of the templates. If you're going to add a picture, you do need to have that image saved on your device. Let's just put in one more match. Notice on the side you have the different options for checking answers. Instantly, just if the students try to match an incorrect pair, it will not allow them to do that. If you choose when prompted, it will allow the students to match all of the items that you have listed here, and then at the end they are prompted to check their answers, and it will show them which pairs they have gotten correct and which pairs they have missed. And so once you have entered all your pairs in, you click Next. Then you are taken here to where you can choose your background, and since this was a science activity, let's choose the science background. And then you choose Finish, and it will create your activity that you have done for the students. I do want you to know up here that you can title your activity. This is in the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to call it Chemical Symbols. And then when you're done, you click Finish Editing, and your activity that you created is right here on your home page. I'm going to jump back to the activities window a minute and back to the game-based activities. You do need to know that the game-based activities that we've just talked about do not have any way of recording what the students have done while they were completing the activity, so they are best suited for practicing of skills, reinforcing skills, and remediation. I'm going to jump back here to the response, but the response, and I'm going to click on this, the response lab activity allows you to create formative assessments that will record what the students have done and give you data from that. Notice here that the response allows you to create different types of questions. You have multiple choice, true, false, multiple answers, poll or opinion questions, and then short answer where the students enter their text. And all of this, when you create the SMART response. You could use it as an exit ticket or as a simple formative assessment over a lesson that you have done. And it will record what every student has done and give you that data back that you can then use. So let me show you real quickly how you create a question. Let's do a true-false question really quick. Notice that you can add an image for your question. And let's say we were studying the planets. Let's type in a true-false statement here for the students to evaluate. The moon is a planet. Okay, so the moon is a planet. Once you type in the question, and I could add a picture if I wanted to add a picture of the moon. I then need to mark the correct answer, and then I am ready to go to add another question. So over here in the upper right hand corner, I'm going to click add another question. For every question, you can change the type. So I'm going to change this one to a multiple choice. Planets is the largest, and you have options for your multiple choice. So I'm going to say you would enter your answers to your question. Again, notice here you can put pictures in. And remember, those pictures must be saved on your device. You choose the correct answer. When you are finished with all of your questions, they'll show over here on the right side of your window. If there was a question that you wanted to delete, you would just simply click on that question, and there's the option to delete the question. Then you would complete next, and then you click next, and your response assessment is created for you. I'm just going to close out of this because I don't need to create that right now. Let me show you the type of data that you can get back when you use the response with your students. Here is a response, a formative assessment that I have created earlier. And after all of your students have taken the assessment, you can then go in and review the results. And so let's look at this so you guys can get an idea of how you can review the results. If you wanted to, with your whole class, you could review every question in the assessment, and it will show the correct answer. If I had actually had students take the test, if I had actually had students take this assessment, over here in this box you would see the answer choices A, B, and C, and how many students picked A, picked B, or picked C. It doesn't show the student's name, but you do get the number of students that picked each answer. And you can go through each question in your assessment with the students if you choose. But more importantly, here in the lower right-hand corner is export results. What this does is it exports the results of every student who took this assessment into an Excel file that you can then use for your data to look at. With that data, you get an item analysis for every student. You get a grade for every student. So if you wanted to use this assessment as a grade, you would have that. That data that you get from the export in the Excel document gives you all the information you would need to know as to whether the students had mastered that skill that you had covered in the assessment. It would help you determine small groups, who you need to remediate, who is ready to go on. It would help you determine the needs of your class or your students for their personalized learning. So there's a very valuable information that you can get from the data that you export from one of these response activities that you have your students do. So now as we are finishing up, let's take a quick second to look how you can edit any Smart Lab activity that you have created. So again, on your home page, once you have created them, they show up here in a list, and if I hover over it, I get the option to edit. So I can click on this chemical symbol activity that I created earlier. I can click edit, and then I could go in and change it or add another one here, and then you would just simply click next, and it would save your edits that you did in the editing. And when you're finished, you just simply click finish edit. I want to show you one more thing. With every Smart Lab activity that you create, you have the ability to share that activity out. In order to do that, if you hover over your activity, there are 3 dots or ellipses here in the bottom right hand corner. If you click on those, you get a window that allows you to edit, share the link, make a copy, or delete it. So we're going to talk about sharing the link. I'm going to click that real quick. And notice here, when you want to share a link, you have 2 options. The first option is to get a teacher share link. So I'm going to click on that. And what that does is I can copy this link and then email it to my coworkers. So this afternoon during your work session, you guys can determine who's going to work on what activity, what you might divide up your standards. And so if you're creating Smart Labs for one standard, you could easily share them with your coworkers, and they can share the Smart Labs that they're creating for the standards that they're working on, and then that way y'all kind of divide and conquer the topics and standards that you have to work on. The other link here allows you to share it with the students. And what this does is it allows the students to access the lesson or the activity that you created outside of class, as long as they have an internet link. These links and these activities will work on their smartphones, their laptops, their tablets, any device that will connect to the internet. So you could simply copy this link and then send it to your students, and they can do the activity outside of class for more practice or reinforcement. Now we're going to go into our breakout session. And so during the next 15 minutes, what you're going to do is you're going to create one game-based activity or get started creating on one. And so remember to create one of the game-based activities from your home screen. You just click the Add Activities button. Then you're going to choose an activity template to create. You can create a shout it out, a response, or you could choose one of the game-based activities that we talked about. Then you're going to create your activity or get started on creating one. And then at the end of the breakout session, be sure that you have shared your link to your activity with a coworker. Now that you've had time to finish your Smart Lab activity, or at least get it started, I just wanted to come back together and review what we've done so far in part 1 of this training. We have learned to access our Smart Learning Suite online. We've become familiar with the interface for the Smart Learning Suite. You guys have at least started creating a Smart Lab that you can use with your students. You know how to edit the Smart Lab activity, and you know how to share the activity with your coworkers. I want to thank you all for your time during the first part of this session, and you'll be starting the second part of the session soon. Remember, if you have any questions during your work session this afternoon, please feel free to reach out to your instructional technology coach for your school zone.